So I thought that today I would answer some questions that I've been getting lately, both here on my YouTube channel and on my Instagram page. So if you're not following me on Instagram, check the description box below and you guys will see a link for my Instagram page. Hi, my name is Kate. I am a 17th year high school math teacher, and I love sharing day in my life, just random facts about teaching high school. So the first question that has been asked is different classes that I teach. So I teach 3 different classes. We're on a block schedule. So I have 4 different sections of geometry, and it's just regular geometry. We don't have an honors geometry here. The building that I'm at is a 10 through 12 building. Our freshmen are housed in a separate building, and we do have a small honors geometry class over there, but we don't offer that in our 10-12 building. So my geometry classes consist of sophomores, juniors, and seniors. It has high ability kids in there, it has students with special needs in there, it has students that do not speak English in there, and it's also got students that are taking geometry for the first time and students that are taking geometry for maybe the 3rd time. So it's really just a mix of students, a mix of abilities, it's just a mix of everything. The other classes that I teach a dual credit pre-calculus class. So dual credit, our students here in Indiana can take dual credit classes and earn high school and college credit at the same time. So pre-calculus is one of those classes that I teach. It is earning high school credit again and earning that college credit. I do have students that are in there that are enrolled in the dual credit class, so they're getting both of those, but I also have students in there that opted not to or did not qualify for the dual credit part. So they're just taking the class for the high school credit. There is absolutely no difference in how I teach the kids or the expectations. I set up the expectations as the college class because that's what the majority of the kids are. And then those kids that are not getting the college credit, well, they're just missing out on that, but they're still getting all of the content. The other class that I teach is another dual credit class, and that is quantitative reasoning. And this, again, like the dual credit pre-calc class, kids are getting both high school and college credit for this, but I do have students that are only enrolled in the high school portion of it. So same thing, have the college expectations, even for those kids that are not getting the college credit for that class. Another question that I was asked a couple of times is about our curriculum. So some of it's really easy to answer, some of it's a little bit more complicated. For our dual credit classes, for our pre-calculus class, we've been using this Blitzer textbook. So I don't necessarily go through and do all of the examples and everything that are in the book. I've got my own set of notes. One of our other pre-calculus teachers really did a great job kind of structuring the curriculum, and then I follow sort of his pace and his ideas and I change things up. But my students use the book for their homework. This is such a big book, it is so heavy. I don't have the students check out the textbooks. They're not paying a textbook fee anyway, so they're not paying for the book. So I will just scan the homework questions and I will put a digital copy of the homework questions on our Canvas page so that the students don't have to carry these around. And I do, obviously, if a student knows that they have issues with internet or just likes to have the textbook rather than looking at the iPad, I do offer the students the opportunity to check this out, but really haven't had any of that. So this is the textbook that we use in pre-calc. The textbook that we use in quantitative reasoning, again, the other dual credit class, is this Using and Understanding Mathematics, a Quantitative Reasoning Approach. And this is my first year teaching this class at the high school level, so I'm definitely following more closely the book, but this one's kind of an interesting layout where, you know, when you're looking at one of the units, we're in unit 2 right now, they're really long. So it may take me 2 or 3 or 4 class periods to get through just section 2B because there's so many examples, there's so much to process with this class. This class, quantitative reasoning, so I'll kind of jump into this and then get back to my curriculum. This is a really cool class for students. It's more of the when am I going to ever use this in real life class. That's what quantitative reasoning is all about. So right now we're doing kind of the basic stuff. We're talking decimals, fractions, percents, scientific notation, that sort of thing. We've done Venn diagrams, but we're going to get into interest rates, loans, consumer price index, talking about credit cards, talking about savings and retirement, and really talking about some of those big things that I think is important for kids to know. And those are things that I didn't really know until I started teaching this over at the college level. So that's a really fun class. It's definitely the math part of it isn't as difficult as the math, let's say, in our pre-calculus or in our finite class. But the hard part is that we're asking them to do the quantitative reasoning. So not just getting an answer, but explaining what does your answer mean. And that's been the hardest thing for our kids because our kids are just used to getting an answer and being done. And now I'm saying, okay, now that you've got your answer, tell me what it means. Give it to me in a meaningful sentence. Explain it so that a normal person would understand your answer. So that's what we've been working on in that class. As far as the curriculum for geometry, yeah, there's my textbook. We don't have one. We used to use the CPM series, which I really loved, for algebra, geometry, algebra 2. It was fantastic, but we adopted that probably 15 years ago, and we haven't adopted a textbook since. We keep asking, and they keep telling us no. So really the curriculum that I use for geometry is curriculum that I create myself, things that I find off of Teachers Pay Teachers, things that my other geometry teachers create. So really it's just pulling from everywhere and creating things. We do have a pacing guide and what we call a scope and sequence that tries to get the teachers on the same page as to, okay, this is what we're teaching in Unit 1 and Unit 2 and so on, and this is kind of how long it should take, but that, doesn't necessarily happen. So that's the information about the textbooks, the resources that we have. Another question that was asked, somebody asked if I've been teaching in the same school for my entire teaching career, and that answer is a little bit complicated. The answer is yes and no all at the same time. So for the first, 14 years, I taught in the same building at my high school in my district. Then our district, several years ago, we got a superintendent who wanted to merge our two high schools together. And I know that's a thing across the country where high schools are merging together. And a lot of that's happening because the schools are small and they need to consolidate. Our schools were massive already, over 1,500, 1,800 kids in each school, and they wanted to merge them anyway. So the merger happened 3 years ago officially. The building that I was at before has become our freshman campus, and so that's where all the freshmen are housed over there, and then everybody in the 10-12 building came over to the other high school in our district that I was not teaching at. So technically, I've been in two different buildings and kind of two different high schools because once we merged, we changed the name of the two different high schools. Now we have one name. But it's still the same district, it's still all the same people, we're just twice as big now. So I really don't consider that as teaching in two different schools, even though we did move buildings, we changed the high school name and all of that. So definitely a more complicated question, but I really have been teaching 17 years in the same district, basically the same high school. School hours. So we keep changing over the 17 years. We've had different school hours. So currently teachers have to get to school by 8 o'clock or 8:10, it depends. We're a little bit confusing on this. So 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock or 8:10 to 4:10. So that's how we run, and it's basically pick which one you want. I typically get here about 7:45 just so that I can get my room set up and just do the last few minute things that I need to. Our students go from 8:35 until our last class gets done at 3:11, and then we have what's called Impact, which is sort of like a homeroom from 3:11 until 3:45. So our kids are in school from 8:35 to 3:45. So we definitely have one of the longer school days in Indiana, and the teachers keep fighting this and saying that we need to readjust our schedule because what's happening with this impact period on Mondays. So we're on a block schedule, so we see 4 classes. So on Mondays, after the end of our last class of the day, those kids stay in our classroom for an extra 40 minutes for this impact period, where we're supposed to be doing anti-bully lessons and things like that. So adding more onto our plate. We don't have to prep the lessons. However, you're teaching something, you're going over something, you kind of want to know what you're doing ahead of time. So you do need to spend a little time looking through that stuff. So we have those kids for a 90-minute block schedule plus another 40 minutes for this impact period on Mondays. Tuesdays through Fridays, similar thing happens. So our last class of the day, which gets done at 3:11, so a 90-minute class period, they stay in our room again for that 40 minutes. However, we have time for kids to do remediation. So 2 times a week, I run a remediation group for math. So I send my students elsewhere, and then I get kids in that need help with math. They're not necessarily my students, but they're just students that need help in math. And during that time, I'm helping kids with math. There we have a room for English, we have a room for just kind of like a general studies, and then we have a room for special ed, so our kids with IEPs can go work with one of the resource room teachers and our TORs to help get some of their classes up. So the goal of this is to help our kids that are failing bring up their grades. Any of our students on any day, if they have a B or higher in all of their classes, they are allowed to leave at 3:11. So our students can come up, they can show us we use Power School, so they show us their Power School grades, and then they're allowed to leave. And that's what happens on Tuesday through Friday. So we've got a lot of movement. In my class of 30 kids right now, I have 1 student who's eligible to leave. On my other day, I have a smaller class, it's my quantitative reasoning. I have 17, but I only have 1 student that's eligible to leave then too. And to try to get those kids at the end of a very long day to sit and focus on schoolwork doesn't really work. So that's one of the reasons why we're really trying to get the district to understand that we can't keep these kids in the same classroom for over 2 hours and expect them to be productive. It's become a challenge. I've also gotten some questions about my flexible seating and the seating in my classroom, and I know you've seen in some of my blogs, if you've watched those before, that I've got very unique seating. You can see I'm sitting on one of these student seats right now on this couch. So I, years ago, just had this idea. I hated having desks. I hate having desks in rows. I always had my kids work in groups, and so putting those little desks together really didn't give the kids a lot of space, and I just knew that the desks weren't comfortable, and I was constantly, oh, you want to go sit on the floor, go sit on the floor, right? So I applied for a grant. We've got an education foundation in our county that I applied for a grant for, and I was able to get a grant for a couple $1,000 so that I could purchase furniture for my flexible seating classroom, and it's been really cool for the most part. There are a few kids over the years that have really struggled handling themselves with, being able to pick the seat that they want to sit in and pick the chair and just use some of the chairs responsibly, specifically the yoga balls. I have had 2 yoga balls pop, and actually it looks like a 3rd one has gone down. But for the most part, the kids really like it. It creates, just a little bit different of an atmosphere, and it makes a subject that they typically don't really like something a little bit more enjoyable, because at least they're comfortable. Now, I do have some issues, especially on the couch here, where kids tend to fall asleep instead. And so wake them up and I tell them, hey, you know what? If I wake you up again, I'm going to make you go to one of the tall tables, and then you have to stand. You can't use one of the stools. And for the most part, that works pretty well. But it does allow the kids that flexibility of, I work really best sitting on the floor, right? I like to sit on the floor and do my homework. So the kids like to sit at the couch, and then they'll actually just sit on the floor and work on the coffee table more at their chest height, and they really like that. So overall, absolutely love the flexible seating. There are definitely days where I'd like to be like, we're putting our desks in rows and all of that, and I sometimes miss that, but most of the time I really love this idea of flexible seating. So if it's something that you guys are interested in, drop a comment below. I would love to start conversations with you and help you figure out how you can achieve something as amazing as what I have as well. So let's talk schedule. I mentioned before that we are on a block schedule. So we're on a, I guess, 4x4 block schedule. I don't know what they're called. I just know that we're on a block schedule where we see 4 classes one day, we see 4 classes the other day. Our block schedule works a little different and it's kind of frustrating. So our Mondays rotate. So we see our blue class one week, the next week we'll see our gold classes. So we just do them by our school colors. Tuesdays are always a blue day. So we see periods 1 through 4 every Tuesday. Every Wednesday is our gold kids, so we see our 5 through 8 every Wednesday. And then Thursday is always our blue, always our 1 through 4. And then Friday is always our gold, our 5 through 8. So the only day that changes is our Mondays, so that sometimes gets confusing because the kids are like, I don't remember what last week's Monday was. Now I have to remember, try to figure out what this one is. So sometimes it gets a little confusing, but part of the difficulty is when I see my blue kids on Monday, I see them on Tuesday as well. So they're getting that class back to back, which then sometimes, depending on, the makeup of the calendar, sometimes like in this week, I taught my blue kids on say day 5 of geometry, and then the next day I taught them day 6. So that's what I did Monday and Tuesday, day 5, day 6, and now I'm seeing my gold kids and I have to go back to day 5, something that I taught Monday. And so they're off by several days, so sometimes it gets a little bit confusing with, shoot, what is it that I already taught them? What do I need to teach them? Because I can't just say, oh, what did I do yesterday? Because it doesn't always fit that way. So that's the challenge with our block schedule, where we have our Tuesday through Friday set the exact same. Every Tuesday and Thursday is one group of kids, every Wednesday, Friday is another. So I know other districts do it different. My son's district has a true alternating, so whatever one day was, it's the next class is the other. And I know a bunch of us are trying to get our school to realize that that would help us better and that would help the kids, I think, better. But we've been doing this for 8 years, so I'm not sure we're going to change. So those were the most common questions that were asked. I would love to do another one of these sit-down videos, talk some more, answer some more questions. So I would love it if you guys in the comments below leave some questions that you have, or hop over to my Instagram page, shoot me a message over there, and let me know, what questions do you guys have? What do you want me to talk about? If you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you're interested in following along more with my high school teaching journey, please subscribe. I do upload videos every Friday, so hit the notification bell to be notified when I upload my next video, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.